Beloved chosen ones, the most dangerous player in any game is the one who never shows their cards until the table is already theirs. Now picture this for a moment. Chosen one, you're sitting across from someone in a high-stakes match. They smirk, convinced they've got you figured out. In their mind, you're harmless, predictable, maybe even naive. They make bold moves, take reckless risks, all the while congratulating themselves for outsmarting you. But what they don't realize is that you've been watching closely. You've been tracking every habit, every subtle tell, every careless slip. And then, with one quiet move, just one, the game ends. Checkmate. They never even saw it coming. Here's a truth most will never admit. Silence and observation are two of the most underestimated weapons in existence. In psychology, it's called strategic patience. And it is lethal against anyone who mistakes stillness for weakness. Those who think they have control often reveal their flaws faster than they realize. All you need to do is watch, remember, and wait. Before we dive deep, let me pause to say thank you to those of you who have supported this mission through Super Thanks. Your generosity is part of the reason these messages keep finding the people who need them most. And if you haven't donated, please know this: your presence, your listening ear, your spirit here in this space is just as valuable. Whether or not you give financially, you are part of a growing force of light. I am deeply grateful for you. Now, let's get back to the truth. They thought you were just a quiet shadow in the corner, a background character to be ignored or brushed aside. But you were never in the background. You were positioning yourself. You didn't need to shout to be heard or announce every move you were about to make. You let them bask in their illusion of control because you knew it would make their eventual fall sharper, deeper, and impossible to forget. They came with fake smiles and sly remarks. They tested you with small traps, with bait hidden inside casual conversations. They thought they were planting seeds of doubt in you, but in reality, they were handing you the blueprint to their own downfall. You didn't need to confront them. You didn't even need to respond. You simply kept moving, steady and unreadable, while they wasted energy trying to provoke you. Every whisper they thought went unnoticed. Every glance they thought was invisible. Every plot they believed was secret. You recorded it all. And now, the moment they realize you've seen everything is the moment they feel that cold twist in their gut. The truth is simple. They were never pulling the strings. They were dancing in the web you quietly spun. Every arrogant step tightened it. And here's the beauty of true power. Chosen one. It doesn't demand attention. It controls the flow without force. You didn't attack first. You didn't have to prove anything in the moment. You let time be your ally. You let their arrogance dig the hole, and their own moves seal the trap. By the time they even considered that you might be dangerous, the game was already over. Now they're replaying every interaction, dissecting your every word, trying to pinpoint when the shift happened. That's the effect of a silent strategist. It leaves them unsure of everything, including themselves. You've shown them that the one who speaks less often sees more, and the one who moves last often wins fastest. So, chosen one. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever let someone think they were in control only to quietly flip the board in your favor, this message is for you. Drop a 777-inch the comments as your declaration that you walk with this kind of quiet, unstoppable power. And if you feel led, show love to the team that makes these messages possible. Every act of support, whether it's 1 cent or 1,000, helps arm chosen ones like you with the wisdom to dismantle every fake, manipulator, and shadowy enemy. Now, let's begin. God's chosen ones. Just watching was enough. You've put them in a final checkmate. Number 1. When their mask cracks. The game is already yours. Chosen one. Have you ever been in a room where you didn't need to say a single word? Yet the atmosphere shifted the moment you walked in. Did you notice how some people suddenly act different? As if your very presence pulls back the curtains on their hidden truths. The reality is, victory doesn't always arrive with the sound of trumpets or the roar of a crowd. Sometimes, it starts quietly with a flicker of doubt in someone's eyes, a laugh that's just a little too forced, or the stiffness in their shoulders when your presence unsettles what they've tried so hard to conceal. That's not paranoia, that's discernment. And when you see it, you know instantly the shift has begun. They are no longer playing against you, they're playing against their own fear. And that, chosen one, is a battle they cannot win, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1-7. The moment their mask slips, they stop operating from confidence and start operating from defense. Tell me, have you ever seen someone go from smug to silent in your presence without you saying a thing? Think of a grandmaster in chess, calm, silent, and patient. That's you. You've been watching the board for months, maybe years. Every smirk, every backhanded, just kidding jab, every whisper you weren't supposed to hear, you stored it. You weren't reacting, you were recording. And while they believed you were just another player fumbling in the dark, you were orchestrating the match in ways they couldn't see. Isn't it interesting how the ones who think they're studying you are often the ones being studied? History is full of examples. Julius Caesar's enemies thought they could hide their betrayal. But every small sign, every hesitation, every odd gathering spoke louder than their words. When the time came, the truth exploded. But Caesar had already sensed the shift long before the Ides of March. Or consider Steve Jobs, quietly observing those who doubted him after being ousted from Apple. They thought they had buried him, but all the while, he was preparing a return that would change the tech world forever. Do you see now why patience is a weapon? The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27-12. Why not just confront them? You ask, why not tear off the mask yourself? Because power doesn't come from forcing the truth. It comes from letting the truth undo them from within. When you remain silent, they begin the most dangerous game of all, questioning how much you know, when you knew it, and how deeply you've seen into them. That internal spiral is far more destructive than any confrontation you could engineer. Have you noticed how guilt makes people talk, even when no one's asking questions? Michael Jordan knew this on the court. He didn't always need to out-talk or out-shout his opponents. Sometimes a single glance, a small smirk, was enough to make them miss shots they'd normally land. Why? Because their mind was no longer on the game, it was on him. Has anyone ever been so distracted by your calm that they sabotaged themselves? Now, every interaction with you feels different to them. Your smile, they don't know if it's kindness or strategy. Your words, they search for hidden meanings. Your silence, it screams louder than any accusation. When the righteous are bold as a lion, the wicked flee, though no one pursues. Proverbs 28-1. You have shifted the battlefield from the physical to the psychological, and they are not equipped to fight there. Even in modern politics, leaders like Abraham Lincoln often let opponents speak themselves into ruin. Lincoln understood that letting others reveal their own contradictions was more effective than attacking them head-on. That's exactly what's happening here. They are building the case against themselves without realizing you're the quiet jury. Do you realize the kind of control it takes to let someone write their own downfall? They start replaying every lie, every attempt to undermine you, every moment they smiled while secretly hoping you'd fail. And they remember you didn't flinch, you didn't retaliate, you simply observed, as if you already knew how the story would end. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Isn't it powerful how stillness can feel louder than shouting? This is where the mask begins to feel heavy. It no longer fits. The performance becomes awkward. Words stumble. Eye contact breaks. Sometimes they avoid you altogether because being near you feels like standing under a light they can't dim. Oprah Winfrey once said that when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. But here's the twist. Chosen one, you believed them, but you also let them keep showing you. Because each repetition tightened the noose they tied themselves. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:7. By the time they realize you've been holding the other end of the rope, it's too late. They thought the game was about speed, volume, and spectacle. You made it about clarity, depth, and timing. And in that arena, they never stood a chance. They were never really playing against you. They were playing against themselves. You were just the mirror. And when the mask finally slipped, they were forced to face what they had been hiding all along. So, chosen one, how many masks have you seen crack in your lifetime? And did you realize, in that very moment, that the game had already been won? Number 2. When the predator lets the prey run, chosen one. Have you ever noticed that the most dangerous players in any game aren't the ones making the most noise? They're the ones who sit still, who let the other side believe they've already won. Patience isn't weakness, it's the quiet sharpening of teeth before the strike. Have you ever thought about how much more powerful it is when someone underestimates you? The very moment they decide you're harmless is the moment you've already set the trap. Sometimes the deadliest move is no move at all. The lion doesn't pounce on every flicker of movement, it waits. The eagle doesn't dive at every shadow it circles until the perfect moment. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Stillness, chosen one, isn't inactivity, it's calculated control. When you allow them to keep moving freely, you're giving them the rope. They will one day tangle around themselves. Picture this, you're deep in a forest. The prey grazes without fear, sniffing the air. Convinced there's no danger, they don't see you. You're still, silent, breath steady, eyes locked. Why rush? Why scare them into running when comfort will make them careless? Isn't it fascinating how comfort can be a trap all on its own? That's exactly how you've been watching them. You gave them no reason to hide. You didn't flash your awareness. You let them roam as if they were in control, when the truth was, they were already in your sights. Every whisper behind your back, you caught it. Every stolen idea, you noted it. Every fake smile, every sarcastic joke, every underhanded move, you stored it all. And the more they believed you were blind, the bolder they became. Haven't you seen how arrogance makes people step right into their own downfall? In nature, the cheetah's fastest weapon isn't speed, it's patience. It doesn't waste energy on the wrong target. You've done the same, just like poker legend Phil Ivey, who's known for letting opponents think they're winning before he takes the entire pot. You played the long game. You let them bet on an illusion they built for themselves, while you quietly held every advantage. For wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Proverbs 8:11. You might wonder, why not shut them down the first time? Why not expose the betrayal instantly? Because silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. Hunters don't roar before the kill. They let the prey tire itself out, convinced it's untouchable, until there's no escape route left. Isn't it more satisfying when the truth catches someone at the exact moment they thought they were safe? Think of Muhammad Ali's famous rope-a-dope tactic, leaning on the ropes, letting his opponent punch themselves into exhaustion before striking back, or Nelson Mandela, who endured decades in prison, allowing the regime to reveal its corruption to the world, so that when he finally stepped out, his moral victory was undeniable. That's the kind of patience that flips the balance of power permanently. Here's the truth: they exposed themselves not once, not twice, but over and over again. People who think they're untouchable always reveal themselves. They saw what they wanted to see. A nod meant agreement. A smile meant approval. Silence meant ignorance. But what if every one of those gestures was deliberate? What if you've been giving them exactly what they needed to believe, all so they'd drop their guard, be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves? Matthew 6:10. Picture a spider in the corner of a dark room. The fly doesn't see it. The spider doesn't chase it, waits. And eventually, the fly lands exactly where it shouldn't. That's the patience you've carried. You didn't have to corner them. You knew their own momentum would do it for you. Haven't you noticed how some people walk right into the consequences they've been building? And here's the thing. Chosen one. They were never as smart as they believed. People truly in control don't need to prove it every second. But these ones, they couldn't resist trying to outwit you. Like a magician performing the same trick over and over. The first time, it might surprise you. The second time, you start to see the sleight of hand. By the third, you can predict every move. Thomas Edison once said, "Vision without execution is hallucination." They had no vision, just ego. And you had the entire blueprint. You were 10 steps ahead, not because you're paranoid, but because you understand human patterns. You knew they'd overreach. You knew they'd slip. You knew if you gave them enough rope, their own ambition would tie the knot. And now, they're replaying every interaction, wondering if you knew then what you know now. They're second-guessing every word, every fake smile, every moment you stayed silent. That's the real checkmate, not the reveal, but the realization you never needed to say a word. Consider Warren Buffett's investing strategy. He doesn't rush into trades. He waits for the fat pitch, the perfect moment when the odds are overwhelmingly in his favor. That's what you've done. You didn't just catch them, you let them create the evidence against themselves. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. Ecclesiastes 7:9. And that's what destroys them the most. They can't deny it. Because the trap wasn't yours, it was theirs. You simply waited until they couldn't escape it. You've turned their own behavior into undeniable proof. Now, whether they admit it or not, they know they were never the predator. They were the prey all along. So hold on to this truth. Chosen one. The hunter who moves too soon loses the game, but the one who waits, the one who lets the prey run, the one who knows exactly when to strike, that's the one who always walks away with the win. Right now, that's you. Haven't you felt it already? You've already won. They just haven't caught up to the truth yet. The end of a matter is better than its beginning. And patience is better than pride. Ecclesiastes 7:8. Number 3. The game they never knew they were losing. Chosen one. Have you ever realized that the most devastating defeat isn't the one that comes with a loud crash? It's the one that happens quietly, invisibly, until it's far too late to undo. The cruelest checkmate is the one they don't see until their king is already cornered, their escape routes gone, their confidence shattered. All this time, you weren't just watching them, you were mapping them. Every glance, every borrowed phrase, every copied gesture, you filed away like evidence in a locked vault. And here's the thing they thought: imitation was a shortcut to power. Have you noticed how often people confuse copying with becoming? They didn't realize that what they were trying to replicate was something they could never touch. Because it wasn't style, it was substance. And substance can't be stolen. But the noble make noble plans, and by noble deeds they stand. Isaiah 32:8. What God has woven into your spirit can't be duplicated by cheap mimicry. Imagine this: they're shadowing your every move like a runner on your heels, convinced they're catching up. They speed up when you speed up. They shift when you shift. But you're not even in the same race. You're running your own track, in your own lane, toward your own horizon. Have you ever wondered how exhausting it must be for someone to chase you without knowing where you're going? This is where the tragedy begins. They can't overtake you because they're not following the route. You are the route. And then came the moment, that split second, when the slip in their mask betrayed them. You saw it in the flicker of their eyes when it hit them. You knew. You had known the entire time. It wasn't a guess. It wasn't a suspicion. It was certainty. And you had let them keep playing as if they were in control. That's when their breath caught. That's when their tone shifted from confidence to caution. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2:6. Think of Usain Bolt in the 2008 Beijing Olympics. He was so far ahead in the 100-meter sprint that he slowed down before crossing the finish line. Still breaking the world record, his rivals were sprinting with everything they had. But they were never in contention. That's you. Chosen one. You didn't need to chase. You were already operating at a speed they couldn't match. Now the questions eat at them. Were you always this aware? How much did you see? What will you do with it? They have no answers. And your silence? Oh, your silence is a weight they can't carry. Have you ever noticed how silence can sometimes be louder than any accusation? The truth is, you never needed to chase them. They were the ones sprinting, desperate to stay ahead of an opponent who wasn't even in the race. They named you a rival before you ever acknowledged their existence. From the moment you entered the room, they started measuring themselves against you, adjusting their tone, calculating their steps, editing their smiles. But ahead of what? That's the cruel irony. They don't even know. You weren't running from them, toward them, or even beside them. You were moving forward for you. This is what burns them the most. Not that they lost, but that they were never truly in the game. Think about chess legend Garry Kasparov. There were matches where his opponent thought they were playing on equal footing, only to realize Kasparov had been controlling the board in ways they couldn't even perceive. That's the level you've been operating on, mastery so far ahead that your opponents mistake their survival for progress. And now, they live with the knowledge that every step they took in competition was just another step deeper into your shadow. A shadow you never had to stretch on purpose. It's simply the space you occupy by existing. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John Hamesh. Steve Jobs once said, "Innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. They thought imitation would crown them as leaders. But all it did was make their following painfully obvious. You set the tone, they echoed it. You shifted direction, they stumbled to match it. You paused, they froze. Unsure of what to do without your movement to mimic, haven't you seen how fragile someone becomes when their entire identity depends on keeping up with you? Even in the art world, Pablo Picasso was imitated endlessly. But the copies never carried the genius, the soul, or the revolutionary spirit of his originals. That's the difference between having the source and chasing the shadow. You, chosen one, are the source, and no matter how closely someone shadows you, they can never own what God Himself planted in you. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. Romans 11:29. So they remain where they've always been behind. Reacting. Adjusting to a game they never understood. And the most painful truth, you didn't have to beat them. You didn't have to crush them. They were never even close enough to count as competition. They'll keep replaying the moments in their minds, trying to figure out how they lost, not realizing they were never even on the scoreboard. And now, chosen one, tell me, isn't it clear? The cruelest defeat isn't losing to you. It's realizing they were never in the running to begin with. Number 4. Their private war against a ghost. Chosen one. Have you ever wondered what it's like for someone to lose themselves while chasing a version of you they can never become? The quickest way to erase your own identity is to try to wear someone else's skin, and they learned that lesson the hard way. They weren't just curious about you, they were consumed by you. They studied you like a scientist observing a rare specimen, convinced that if they watched long enough, if they took enough notes, they could replicate you. Have you noticed how obsession always exposes itself in the smallest details? Every element they tried to capture: the way you carry yourself without apology, the rhythm in your voice when you speak truth, even the subtle quirks in your style that you've never tried to explain. They attempted to mimic. They thought they could distill your essence into something they could wear, like a costume. But essence isn't clothing. It's not an accessory you pick up in a store. It's the skin you're born in, the storms you've walked through, the scars that turned into strength. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, for the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." 1 Samuel 6:7. Imagine them trying to capture the sun by tracing its shadow. No matter how perfectly they outline it, they will never feel the heat, never hold the light. That's because they wanted your power without paying your price. They wanted the destination without walking the miles. They thought that if they looked enough like you, the universe would somehow confuse them for the real thing. But here's the truth: they never understood. Authenticity has a weight, and that weight cannot be faked. It's in your silence when others expect noise. It's in the decisions you make that no one sees. It's in the calm you carry because you've already survived storms they can't imagine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Isaiah 43:2. That calm isn't an act, it's a testimony. While they were burning themselves out, plotting, shaming, and rehearsing ways to surpass you, you weren't even watching. You were too busy building, evolving, expanding, and chasing your own vision. You never noticed the competition because you never signed up for it. Haven't you found it strange how some people are at war with you in their mind, while you're at peace in your reality? History repeats this pattern. Think of Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. While Tesla was focused on innovation and a vision for the future, Others in the industry were trying to outmaneuver him politically, wasting energy on rivalry instead of creation. Or look at Serena Williams. So many players tried to imitate her style and power, but none could replicate the mental fortitude forged through years of battles, wins, and comebacks. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. James Shlosh Shesh Asara. They were fighting an invisible war, swinging at shadows, convinced they were one move away from victory. But how do you defeat someone who isn't even on the battlefield? How do you outrun someone who isn't racing you at all? The truth is, they couldn't, and deep down, they knew it. Isn't it remarkable how much energy someone can waste chasing a ghost? Every plan they made, every strategy they crafted, every ounce of energy they poured out wasn't moving them forward. It was chaining them to you. They thought the goal was to outshine you. But the real, unspoken goal was something much darker. They wanted to be you. And that was never an option God put on the table. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. Romans 11:29. Think about the art world. Countless painters have tried to mimic Van Gogh's swirling skies and bold strokes. But what they could never capture was the internal fire, the emotional turbulence, the lived reality that bled into his work. That's the difference between wearing a mask and having a soul, even in entertainment. Michael Jackson's stage presence has been studied by thousands of performers, but no one has been able to replicate the intangible magic he carried, because it wasn't just talent. It was something deeper, woven into his being. And you, chosen one, carry that same kind of irreplaceable signature in your spirit. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. Now they're drained, worn out, spiraling in circles. Every attempt to beat you has only proven how far behind they truly are. They thought they were climbing a ladder, but it was leaning against the wrong wall. They thought they were chasing a target, but the target was moving on an entirely different plane. And here's the bitter truth for them. They were never supposed to be you. That was never their destiny, never their assignment, never their lane. But they insisted on waging a private war against a ghost, and in the end, they didn't just lose to you, they lost themselves. Number 5. The eyes they never saw. Chosen one. Have you noticed that the greatest advantage you can ever hold is letting someone believe they are invisible? Because that's the exact moment they stop hiding and start showing you everything. The moment they think no one sees them, their guard drops. And in that lowered guard is the full blueprint of their intentions. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. They thought they were the watchers. They thought they were the ones holding the upper hand, pulling the strings, setting traps in the shadows. But the truth is, you were watching them the whole time. Do you know how much power there is in observing without revealing? Every stolen glance they thought it slipped past you, but you caught it. Every whisper behind closed doors they thought it was safe, but you felt it in the air before the words ever reached your ears. Every calculated move they thought they were the architects, but you had predicted it before it even formed in their mind. Imagine a predator in the tall grass, still and silent, letting the prey wander freely. The prey moves carelessly, thinking itself untouchable, invisible, but the predator sees everything, every twitch, every pause, every misstep that edges it closer to danger. Isn't it something how people's confidence grows when they think they're unseen? even as they walk straight toward their own downfall. That's exactly how you studied them. You didn't just notice them, you dissected their patterns. You saw the cracks in their confidence. You heard the tremor in their voice when they tried to sound sure of themselves. You recognized the desperation hiding behind their tightly rehearsed smiles. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. Proverbs 15:3. History has shown this principle over and over. During World War II, the Allies successfully tricked the Nazis with Operation Fortitude, convincing them to focus on the wrong location for D-Day. Why did it work? Because the Germans thought they had the advantage, all while their observations were carefully being fed to them. Or think of Warren Buffett. He's known for waiting and watching entire industries for years before making his move, all while competitors assume he's inactive. And here's the brutal reality: you didn't need to expose them. They did that themselves. Because when someone believes no one is watching, they get sloppy. They reveal their tells. They show their weaknesses. They leave traces they can't erase. They whispered your name like a spell, hoping you'd never hear it. They plotted scenarios where you'd fail, certain you'd never see the trap. But every plan they made left behind the scent of its origin, and you collected every fragment of it. Muhammad Ali understood this perfectly in the ring. He didn't always swing first. He watched. He let his opponents reveal their rhythm, their tells, their weaknesses, until they couldn't hide them anymore. Then he struck. Haven't you also found that the longer you wait, the more the truth volunteers itself? While they were busy trying to control your perception, they were leaving a trail of evidence that you quietly picked up piece by piece. Be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Colossians 4:5. They thought they were writing your downfall, but in reality, they were documenting their own collapse, even in the tech world. Steve Jobs once said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards." That's what you've been doing, letting the dots gather, watching their moves form a picture they never intended you to see. The irony? They were so consumed with keeping an eye on you that they never realized how much they were giving away. They thought they were steering the ship, but the current was always yours. They thought they were setting the rules, but the game was already written. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. And you were always 3 steps ahead, not because you were lucky, but because the game they thought they were running was one you had already mastered, long before they stepped into the arena. That's the advantage they'll never understand. You don't have to move loudly to win, you just have to see clearly. And chosen one, haven't you seen it all along? Number 6. When their fantasy meets your reality. Chosen one. Have you ever seen someone build their life on an illusion so fragile that you know without lifting a finger it's only a matter of time before it shatters? The easiest way to collapse a false world isn't to attack it, but to let it grow unchecked until it buckles under its own weight. You didn't have to fight their fantasy. You simply gave it space to overextend itself. While they busied themselves decorating a house of cards, you quietly let them brag. Let them inflate their victories. Let them weave their tangled web higher and higher. Did you notice how every boast, every exaggerated win was another brick in a tower they didn't realize was leaning? You nodded at their stories. You stayed silent when they flaunted achievements they hadn't earned. You allowed them to think they were outshining you, knowing all along that illusions cannot survive the daylight, for there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. And then, without warning, the light shifted. Suddenly, the shadows where they hid vanished. The masks they wore cracked. The hunters became the hunted. The watchers became the watched. And for the first time, they felt the unbearable weight of being truly seen, not for the image they projected, but for the truth they could no longer outrun. Have you seen how quickly a confident facade melts when there's nowhere left to hide? Now paranoia clings to them like smoke in a closed room. They replay every conversation, every smirk, every slip they thought went unnoticed. The questions claw at them. What did you see? How much do you know? What will you do with it? They won't dare ask. Because they already know the answer is everything. History has played this scene countless times. Think of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos. Years spent crafting a billion-dollar illusion until the light of investigation revealed the cracks. Or Lance Armstrong, whose dominance in cycling collapsed overnight when truth replaced myth. Or the Enron scandal, where towering corporate pride hid deep corruption until reality pulled the curtain back. The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Proverbs 11:3. For you, chosen one. This didn't start as a grand strategy. It began as a whisper, a subtle knowing deep in your spirit that you were built differently. You walked through life sensing shifts in energy others didn't detect. You caught the micro-expressions, the pauses before a lie, the way someone's eyes darted before they spoke. People could feel something about you. Even if they couldn't name it, they were drawn to you, intrigued by you, sometimes even unsettled in your presence. Have you noticed how people respond to your spirit long before they understand it? At first, you doubted yourself. You told yourself you were imagining things. You tried to blend in, to shrink your presence, to tone down the gift. But the signs kept finding you. The patterns became undeniable. The truth was too heavy to unsee. And one day, you stopped running from it. The Spirit of truth will guide you into all the truth. John 6:10. That was the turning point. Your quiet awareness became their undoing. Because once you stopped second-guessing, you stopped offering the benefit of the doubt to people who had shown you who they were. You let them build their illusions in plain sight, knowing that the higher they climbed, the harder the fall would be. And you knew it wasn't if they'd fall, but when. Think of the Trojan horse in ancient history. The city of Troy accepted what they thought was a gift, not realizing it contained their own destruction. That's what happened here. They invited the collapse by building it themselves, mistaking your patience for ignorance. Or recall Haman in the book of Esther, who built the gallows for Mordecai, only to be hanged on them himself. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26:27. Modern life is no different. Social media influencers have risen on false images, only to see their brands implode the moment truth surfaced. Business moguls have crafted untouchable reputations, only for a single revelation to erase decades of illusions. And in every case, the fall wasn't caused by the enemy, it was built into the illusion itself. Now they stand in the ruins, sifting through the dust of their own making. Their world didn't crumble because you attacked it. It collapsed because you refused to hold it up. You remain untouched, steady, watching the dust settle while they try to rebuild a version of themselves that can survive in the open. And here's the truth they'll never admit. It wasn't confrontation that destroyed them. It was your refusal to participate in their fantasy. You gave them the space to create their own undoing. Knowing it could never stand in the presence of your reality, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John Shmuna, Shalushim Vishtaim, that freedom, chosen one, wasn't just for you, it was the same force that severed their power over you. And now, as the dust clears, you move forward, not as the destroyer of their illusion, but as the living proof that truth doesn't need a sword, it only needs time, and the light will always do the rest. Number 7. When the unseen starts speaking loud, chosen one. Have you ever realized that some things in your life aren't just coincidences, they're coordinates? They're not random, they're signals. You started noticing the threads before anyone else could see them. Little patterns that repeated with too much precision to be dismissed. A conversation overheard at the perfect moment. An opportunity that appeared exactly when you needed it. A warning disguised as a casual comment. Haven't you felt that sense that someone, somewhere, is aligning the chessboard for you? It wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was alignment so exact, so intentional, that it felt like you'd been invited into a secret only a few could understand. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Psalm 37-23. Every moment, every thread, every intersection had purpose woven into it. The dreams came first, not the kind you shrug off with your morning coffee, but the ones that linger in your chest like smoke, heavy and vivid, etched into your mind as if they'd left fingerprints on your soul. You woke up with the taste of them still in your mouth, knowing they meant something, even if the meaning wasn't clear yet. And then came the symbols. Words repeated in conversations from different people, numbers appearing again and again, songs that seemed to play at the exact right moment. You weren't chasing meaning. Meaning was chasing you. History is full of people who recognized when the unseen started speaking loudly. Harriet Tubman, called Moses by those she led to freedom, said she followed visions and dreams that guided her paths on the Underground Railroad. Nikola Tesla believed his greatest ideas came to him fully formed in flashes of insight. Joan of Arc claimed to hear voices that gave her the courage to lead armies. Surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan to his servants, the prophets. Amos 3:7. And then came the intuition. You knew before anyone spoke, before a hand was extended. You sensed whether to shake it or not, before a smile was flashed. You knew if it carried sincerity or an ulterior motive. You felt when to move forward, when to stay still, when to close the door, and when to leave it open. Have you noticed how your body sometimes reacts before your mind even understands why? Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Isaiah 30:21. For a while, you doubted it. You wondered if you were reading too much into things, if maybe you were being paranoid. But deep down, you knew. You weren't imagining this, you were remembering it. That's why certain places feel familiar the first time you see them. Why some people feel like you've known them forever. Why your spirit recognizes danger even when your eyes see nothing. This body, this life, this moment, none of it is random. It's an assignment you never applied for, but were built for. Think of Winston Churchill, who seemed to have an almost prophetic instinct for timing in war and politics, or Corrie ten Boom, whose gut feelings saved lives during the Holocaust. These were not accidents. They were the fruit of an unseen guidance system that those tuned in cannot ignore. The shift happened the moment you stopped questioning it. When you looked at yourself, not the reflection the world sees, but the truth beneath, and recognized exactly what you were. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. From that day forward, the entire game changed. You stopped chasing. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped knocking on doors that were never meant to open for you. And almost immediately, you began to understand the stares, the envy, the subtle tests and challenges. They feel it too. That thing inside you, they can't name but desperately want to control. Your presence unsettles them because it can't be boxed, copied, or rewritten. It isn't theirs to claim, and it never will be. Just as no one could replicate Maya Angelou's voice, Albert Einstein's mint, or Mother Teresa's compassion. What you carry is a one-of-a-kind spiritual signature. No one can snatch them out of my hand. John 10:28. And here's what drives them mad. The unseen that has been speaking to you is now speaking through you. You've moved from silent perception to living demonstration. You've become the confirmation of everything they've been trying to deny. They can't control it. They can't claim it. And they can't compete with it, because it was never theirs to begin with. Number 8. Past the point of no return. Chosen one. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. Once you step into your power, there's no way back to the smaller version of yourself the world was comfortable with. And here you are, standing in the exact place you were always meant to be. The air feels different here, doesn't it? It's heavier, more sacred, more certain. You've crossed the line, and the bridge behind you is gone. There's no pretending anymore. No folding yourself into the box others made for you. No playing the character they liked better. Have you noticed how much lighter it feels when you stop carrying the weight of their expectations? Stop right there. Yes, you. This isn't a message for the crowd, and it never will be. If your heart isn't beating faster, if your spirit doesn't feel that familiar pull in your chest, this isn't for you. And that's fine. But if you feel your soul reacting to every single word right now, if it feels like I'm reading a chapter from your own hidden story, then you already know this is meant for you. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. You've always been different. The one who didn't quite fit into the mold, the one who saw through the game while everyone else played along, the one who spotted the truth hiding in the shadows of the lie. They told you to tone it down, to settle, to follow the rules they themselves broke. But you couldn't, and deep down, you never even wanted to. Does that sound like someone built to blend in, or someone built to lead? Good, because people like you aren't here for the ordinary. You are the crack of lightning that slices through the night, the storm that strips away illusions, the mountain that doesn't bow even when the ground shakes. Unshakable, unstoppable, untouchable. The righteous shall never be moved. They will be remembered forever. Psalm 112:6. While the masses run in circles, chasing trends and validation, you walk your own road alone if necessary, not for applause, not for acceptance, but because there is no other choice. History has always belonged to those who dared to cross this threshold. Rosa Parks didn't just take a seat on a bus, she stepped past the point of no return. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't just speak, he stood knowing there was no going back. Harriet Tubman didn't free herself only to hide, she kept returning for others, knowing she could never again live in chains. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. This is who you are. You've taken the stones they threw and built a fortress. You've taken the wounds meant to destroy you and forged armor no enemy can pierce. Your wisdom isn't borrowed, it's been carved into you by fire, pressure, and storms. Isn't it strange how the very things meant to end you became the reason you're still standing? And yes, not everyone will get it. Not everyone is meant to, but the ones who do, they're your people. They'll recognize the way you move through a room. They'll see the light in your eyes that only comes from surviving darkness. They'll understand the calm in your voice that only comes from walking through fire. Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10. When you find them, everything changes. Just like the Wright brothers finding each other's vision, just like Helen Keller and Anne Sullivan, whose partnership broke the barrier between isolation and communication, just like David finding Jonathan, an ally who saw the crown long before it touched his head. So if this is hitting you right now, maybe it's time to stop walking entirely alone. The ones who see, the ones who know, the ones who refuse to bow to the illusion, they are out there. No masks, no games, just truth, and they are waiting for you to recognize them. The choice, chosen one, will always be yours. Stay where it's safe and small, or step fully into what has always been yours. Enlarge the place of your tent. Stretch your tent curtains wide. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords. Strengthen your stakes. Isaiah 54:2. And if you're truly ready, you don't need me to tell you which choice you'll make. You've already made it. You crossed the line, and now there is no turning back. Number 9. When their eyes finally lock on you. Chosen one. The moment you stop hiding is the exact moment the world starts staring. You felt it long before you could put it into words, the subtle, almost eerie shift in the atmosphere. The way your phone seemed to glitch right when your thoughts got too sharp, too real, too heavy to be ignored. Calls dropping mid-sentence. Screens flickering like they were struggling to keep up with something bigger than the circuitry inside them. Conversations cutting off at the very moment you were about to speak the truth that would change everything. Have you noticed how those moments never feel random, but perfectly timed? It wasn't coincidence, it was precision. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. Something in the unseen was reacting to your presence, to your awakening, to your decision to stop folding yourself into the world's comfort zones. And then came the people, strangers who didn't just glance, they lingered, they studied. Their eyes stayed fixed on you, like they were trying to read a page they were never supposed to open. Their questions weren't casual, they were calculated, probing, fishing for pieces of a puzzle they didn't have the edge pieces for. Haven't you felt it? That stare that doesn't just see you, but tries to decode you. History remembers these moments. Think of Rosa Parks the day she refused to give up her seat. Every eye in that bus locked on her. Some in disbelief, some in recognition of a shift that couldn't be reversed. Or Serena Williams stepping onto the court with a presence so undeniable the crowd felt it before she even swung the racket. You noticed the shift in your own circle. The ones who used to dismiss you, brush you off, or pretend not to see you, suddenly found themselves watching from the sidelines, not out of admiration, but calculation. Their attention wasn't warm. It was measured. They were studying you. not to celebrate you, but to assess you. They noticed because the moment you stopped shrinking, the moment you stepped fully into your energy, something shifted in the unseen. That shift was like a beacon, one they couldn't ignore. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 60:1. And now they're watching, measuring, trying to map your every move as if you're a code they can crack. They dissect your silence, overanalyze your steps, and replay your words like there's a formula hidden inside them. But here's what they can't accept. There is no formula. You don't move on their timeline. You don't think within their boundaries. You don't play their game. So their rule book is useless. Haven't you seen how frustrated people get when they can't predict your next move? Think of Elon Musk, love him or hate him. His unpredictability keeps entire industries watching, adjusting, reacting. Or Frida Kahlo, whose art and life defied every expectation, making her untouchable in her authenticity. That's what you embody. Chosen one, a rhythm they can't mimic and a blueprint they'll never hold. They search for a weak point, scanning you for cracks. But you know the truth. Your strength isn't about being flawless. It's about being untouchable where it matters most in your core. Your conviction, your calling. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid? Psalm 27:1. Even when they think they've seen enough to figure you out, they'll find you've already moved to the next chapter. You're not static. You're not an open book. You're a living story being written in real time, with plot twists they'll never predict, just like David facing Goliath. Your strength doesn't come from matching the world's armor. It comes from moving with a power they can't measure. So let them watch. Let them take notes. Let them whisper. They can stare as long as they want, but they'll never understand the coordinates of your destiny, because you are not here to be explained. You are here to be lived, and no matter how long they look, they'll never truly see the whole of you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. And that, chosen one, is why they'll keep looking. Because deep down, they know they've locked eyes with something they cannot control. Number 10. When their curiosity turns against them. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how curiosity, when left unchecked, has a way of turning into something darker? At first, their eyes on you might have felt harmless, a passing interest, a glance that didn't linger too long. But the longer they watched, the deeper they fell into the pull. Curiosity became fascination. Fascination became fixation. And when they couldn't easily find the answers they were looking for, that fixation began to sour into frustration. Frustration, in its most dangerous form, always curdles into fear. The wicked flee though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Proverbs 28:1. Somewhere in their quiet watching, they stumbled into the truth. They weren't ready for you. See them too. You don't just notice them when they're in front of you. You feel them before they even step into the room. Haven't you sensed that shift in the air? The subtle heaviness when certain people arrive, the change in tone when they speak your name, the sudden weight behind a casual comment, even the way their eyes linger a fraction too long, like they're measuring every breath you take. History remembers the danger of underestimating the one who can see you. Think of Queen Elizabeth I, who sat silently through foreign ambassadors' carefully rehearsed speeches, only to answer with uncanny precision that revealed she'd read between every line. Or Muhammad Ali, who read his opponents in the ring before the first punch was thrown. winning the mental match before the physical one even began. For the Lord does not see as man sees. For man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. Echat Samuel, Shesh Asra, Sheba. You felt the subtle tests, the little pushes to see if you'd flinch. Strategic questions meant to pull a reaction from you. Innocent-sounding remarks designed to poke at your patience, but you didn't give them what they wanted. You kept moving. You walked as if their presence was irrelevant. You spoke as if nothing about the moment was unusual. You existed as though you had not a care in the world. Isn't it unsettling how much silence can rattle someone who's desperate for a read on you? They didn't understand that your stillness wasn't emptiness. It was strategy. You saw the signs they thought you'd miss. The shift in posture when you walked in. The casual conversations that felt rehearsed. The smiles that stopped short of the eyes. The bait hidden inside small talk. They assumed you'd be too distracted to notice. But you didn't just notice, you catalogued every detail. Be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. Matthew Eser, Shesh Asra. When their focus locked on you, you felt it immediately. And in that instant, you made your choice not to confront, not to expose, but to disappear in plain sight. You smiled when it was expected. You nodded at the right moments. You moved like someone safe, predictable, ordinary. Have you ever seen a magician guide the audience's eyes to one hand while the other does the real work? That's exactly what you were doing. While they believed they were reading you, they never realized they were stepping into the open themselves. Every question they asked revealed their real motive. Every reaction they waited for told you what they feared most. Every pattern in their behavior painted the clearest picture of who they were. Think of Sun Tzu's principle from The Art of War. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. You gave them the illusion of control, and in return, they gave you the full map of their intentions. Or remember Mata Hari, the World War I spy who allowed her enemies to underestimate her until she'd extracted all the information she needed. Or even Sherlock Holmes, whose greatest weapon was letting people talk just long enough to reveal the one detail they thought they'd hidden. And here's the irony. Chosen one, they thought they were playing the role of the observer, but their curiosity had already flipped the power dynamic. The hunter became the one being tracked. The reader became the one being read. And the longer they searched for your weak point, the more they unknowingly exposed their own. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Isaiah 54:17. That's why their curiosity now feels dangerous to them, because they've begun to realize they're standing under the same spotlight they thought they were holding over you. And no matter how long they watch, they'll never regain the advantage. Number 11. When they played their hand too soon. Chosen one. Silence doesn't mean you're unarmed. It means you're loading. Have you noticed how people get uncomfortable when they can't read you? They start filling in the blanks with their own assumptions, and that's where they set the trap for themselves. They saw your quiet and mistook it for weakness. They looked at your patience and assumed it was inexperience. In their minds, they were holding the cards, controlling the pace, dictating the game. But while they basked in their false sense of dominance, they were already making their biggest mistake, showing you exactly what they had. Even a fool is thought wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue. Proverbs 17:28. Every slip of the tongue, every alliance they formed, every subtle shift in tone, they believed you weren't paying attention. But you were. You didn't have to pry. You didn't have to demand answers. They handed you the blueprint to their intentions piece by piece, not realizing you were collecting it all. Haven't you seen how arrogance makes people careless with their own secrets? History is full of these moments. Think of Napoleon at Waterloo, overconfident, assuming he'd read his enemy perfectly, until the hidden reinforcements arrived. Or Richard Nixon during Watergate, convinced he controlled the narrative, only to have his own recorded words seal his fate. Or Mike Tyson facing Buster Douglas, underestimating him until it was far too late to recover. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2:6. They thought you had no cards at all, when in truth, you were holding the winning hand. Your stillness wasn't emptiness, it was precision. You allowed them to stack their moves, to overplay their position, to run themselves into a corner where retreat was impossible. Isn't it something how the impatient will often undo themselves while you simply watch? Now the realization is clawing at them. You were never in the dark. You were never blind. You were never out of the loop. You were simply patient, letting them believe in an illusion of control until they had no moves left. And the truth? Every word, every action, every subtle gesture they thought was harmless is now permanently recorded in your mind. The truth can't be unseen. The knowledge can't be unlearned. Think of Warren Buffett's investment style, waiting years for the right opportunity, letting the market overvalue certain stocks until the price collapses and the real value is revealed. Or Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary samurai, who would often frustrate his opponents into making reckless moves before striking. That's exactly what you've done. The end of a matter is better than its beginning, and patience is better than pride. Ecclesiastes 7:8. They try to explain it away. Maybe you've changed. Maybe you got sharper. Maybe someone whispered the truth to you. But the reality is, far colder. You were always like this. They just weren't paying attention at first. They assumed you were easy to read, easy to steer, easy to contain. They thought their whispers could rewrite your reality and their judgments could define your worth. But now they know better. And the worst part, you never needed to change. You didn't have to level up to see through them. You were always holding the upper ground. You just waited for them to overplay their hand, to deal themselves into a corner, before calmly showing them the card that ended the game. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Isaiah 54:17. That's the beauty of your patience. Chosen one. The loud win battles, the patient win wars, and this one was over long before they realized they'd already lost. Number 12. When the air changes and they can't breathe. Chosen one. The most dangerous shift in power isn't the one that comes with trumpets and headlines. It's the one no one notices until it's already filling the room, until the air itself feels different in their lungs. And then it happened, the shift. It didn't come with noise or spectacle. It was quiet, deliberate, surgical. They couldn't name it at first, but they could feel it. Your presence grew heavier, not in a way that burdened you, but in a way that commanded the space. Your silence stopped being empty and became loaded, intentional, unshakable, and impossible to ignore. Your movements became precise. Your focus sharpened like the edge of a blade, and yet you carried yourself as if it cost you nothing. Calm, unbothered, untouchable. Haven't you noticed how deeply it unsettles people when they realize you're no longer moving according to their script? Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 40:10. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't defend your choice. You didn't dance to the rhythm they thought they controlled. That's when the first cracks began to form. They tried to bait you backhanded compliments, questions with hidden hooks, staged moments designed to test your composure, but you didn't flinch. You sidestepped every trap with ease. Things that once provoked you now passed through you like wind through open hands. This is a truth known to the greats. Nelson Mandela, during his imprisonment, refused to react to provocation from guards. His stillness frustrated them more than any defiance could. Or think of Michael Jordan, who could let trash talk roll off him, only to respond by dominating the court without a word. That's what your restraint does. It flips the balance of power without lifting a finger. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. Ecclesiastes 7:9. That's when they started to panic. They could feel it. The energy had shifted, and the control had slipped from their hands. They didn't know what you knew or how much you'd seen. They replayed every conversation, dissected every glance, trying to locate the moment they lost their advantage. But the truth was harsher. They never had it. Your silence became suffocating. It wrapped around them like a chokehold, pressing against the parts of them that feared exposure in their world. Pressure makes people talk too much, defend too loudly, react too quickly, but you stayed surgical in your restraint. No explanations, no justifications, no crumbs for them to follow. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Proverbs 17:28. They tried again, passive-aggressive remarks, loaded questions, staged scenarios meant to break your composure. But you didn't bite. You let them keep their illusion, their false narratives, their carefully spun lies, because you understood something they couldn't face. They weren't ready for the truth. And if they were, they'd have to accept a reality they've avoided all along, that you are beyond their control. Think of Bobby Fischer in chess, letting opponents believe they had a winning strategy, all while guiding them into checkmate. Or Cleopatra, who charmed and disarmed political opponents while quietly securing her position as Egypt's unshakable ruler. That's the space you operate in now. The wisdom of the prudent is to give thought to their ways. But the folly of fools is deception. Proverbs 14:8. They're trapped in a game without knowing the rules, a game you mastered before they even realized they were a piece on the board. They drown in uncertainty, overanalyzing your every glance, obsessing over your silence, and driving themselves to exhaustion, trying to predict your next move. But here's the truth that tightens the noose around their arrogance. They don't know your limits. They don't know if you're holding back or if you've already won. While they were moving, you were watching. While they were plotting, you were studying. And while they were grasping for control, you were already 10 steps ahead, quietly assembling the perfect trap from the very pieces they handed you. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. And now, chosen one. They're learning a lesson. They can't forget that the air changes when true power enters the room. And once it does, breathing is never the same again. Number 13. When the walls they built turn to dust. Chosen one. Have you ever watched someone walk straight into their own trap, smiling as if they were stepping onto a throne? That's the most perfect trap there is, the one they believe is a crown, not a cage. It didn't happen in a flash. There was no explosion, no dramatic confrontation to alert them. The collapse was slow, deliberate, and inevitable. Every time they thought they were advancing, they were actually sinking deeper into an illusion, one you allowed them to believe in. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for him. Isaiah 30:18. You gave them rope, not enough to hang themselves immediately. but just enough for them to weave it into what they thought was a crown, never realizing it was also a noose. And each time they thought they had you figured out, they weren't uncovering the truth. They were revealing themselves. Have you noticed how easy it is for arrogance to expose its own hand? Every whispered scheme, every smug glance, every calculated move, all of it was another confession they didn't even realize they were making. Think of the Watergate scandal. Richard Nixon thought he was securing his position, but every attempt to cover his tracks only made the trail clearer. Or Napoleon's march into Russia, convinced of victory. Yet every step forward was deeper into disaster. The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. Proverbs 12:15. Now, they have no moves left. You can see it in their eyes, panic blooming, certainty draining. They no longer look at you as someone to control. They look at you as someone they never understood. Isn't it something when the predator realizes too late that they were never the hunter? The confidence they once wore so easily is gone, replaced by a cold truth that gnaws at their pride. You were always in control. This was never their game to win. You didn't wait because you were afraid. You didn't stay quiet because you didn't know what to do. You waited because timing is everything, and precision wins wars without wasting a single bullet. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. Ecclesiastes 3:1. You knew they had to believe they were untouchable, that they had to build their fragile house of illusions and walk with the certainty that they had you cornered. Only then would the fall cut deep enough to end their run. So you let them. You let them stack their empty victories. You let them think your patience was weakness. You watched as they mistook your silence for surrender, never realizing it was the sound of the ground shifting beneath their feet. History rewards those who know the value of waiting. Think of Queen Esther, who didn't rush to confront Haman, but waited for the exact moment when revealing the truth would destroy his plans entirely. Or Bobby Fischer, the chess grandmaster, who sometimes made moves that appeared passive, only to reveal they were traps that had been set 10 moves earlier. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27:12. Then came the moment, not loud, not public, not desperity. Just one move, one calculated, precise strike. Maybe it was a single sentence. Maybe it was one small, deliberate action. But it was enough to pull the thread that unraveled everything they had built. You've seen that moment before in others, that cold rush along the spine, that hollow drop in the stomach when someone realizes they were never in control. Haven't you felt the room change when they finally understand? They knew it instantly. You were never blind, never behind, never at their mercy. You had them mapped out long before they realized a game was even being played. And just like that, the structure they'd been so proud of dissolved into dust. Now they stand in the ruins of their own arrogance, clawing for explanations, scrambling for control. But it's too late. The game ended long before they knew it began. They didn't just lose, they never had a chance to win. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel can avail against the Lord. Proverbs 21:30. And as they sift through the rubble of their illusions, one truth will haunt them more than any defeat. It was never you who was trapped. It was always them. Number 14. Victory without ever stepping on their board. Chosen one. The loudest win is the one earned in silence. The kind of win that leaves no smoke, no noisy, no mess, for you to clean up only the undeniable reality that you've already triumphed. You never needed their approval to validate your worth. You never craved their applause to confirm your path. You never asked for their permission to exist. Haven't you noticed how unsettling it is for some people when you don't need them for anything? They were scrambling for control in a game they built entirely in their own minds. A game where they convinced themselves that your silence meant ignorance. Your patience meant weakness. And your distance meant defeat. But here's the truth. They were never ready to face. They never had control. Not for a single moment. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus pais presece. Pais presece. Why? Because you weren't playing. You were watching. You let them run their little race in frantic circles while you stayed still. Calm. Grounded. And in full command of yourself. Haven't you seen how quickly people tire themselves out chasing a finish line that doesn't even exist? Every scheme they built, every jab they threw, every trap they set only exposed the cracks in their own foundation. You didn't need to shove them off balance. They were already collapsing under the weight of their arrogance. Just like Napoleon at Waterloo, overestimating his position until his own overreach destroyed him. Or Kodak. Clinging to old power while the world moved past them. Their downfall wasn't caused by an opponent, but by their own refusal to see clearly. Pride goes before destruction. A haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. They wasted their energy trying to break you, not realizing they were dismantling themselves in the process. And now they're trapped, not by anything you did to them, but by the obsession they built around you. Think about it. How much of their mental space have they given away? Replaying your every move, every word, every silence. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. They replay it all now. Every conversation they thought they controlled. Every smug glance they thought was intimidating. Every choice that seemed clever at the time, but now looks foolish under the light of hindsight. That's the thing about time. It always reveals who was really winning. And here's the most devastating part for them. They're doing all of this, replaying in the silence you left behind. You're not arguing. You're not defending yourself. You're not even staying to watch the fallout. You simply walked away, and that was your final move. Because the thing they wanted most wasn't actually to beat you. It was to hold your attention, and now they'll never have it again. It's the same power that great leaders, thinkers, and warriors throughout history have used to disengage entirely, denying the enemy the satisfaction of a fight on their terms. Muhammad Ali didn't need to box every challenger who tried to bait him outside the ring. Oprah Winfrey never chased her critics. She let her work and her results speak for her. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Proverbs 26:4. By refusing to step onto their board, you forced them to play a game they could never win one, where every move they made only tightened the noose of their own undoing. And now, all that's left is the echo of your absence, which speaks louder than any final word you could have given them. Checkmate. Chosen one. You didn't just win, you won without playing. And that's the kind of victory they'll never recover from. The battle is not yours, but God's. 2 Chronicles 20:15. Chosen one. If this message struck something deep within you, it's because you've lived it. You know exactly what it feels like to win without stepping onto their board. You felt the quiet satisfaction of holding your ground, keeping your silence, and watching the truth reveal itself in God's timing. That is a power they will never comprehend, because it's a power born not from ego, but from divine alignment. As you walk forward from here, remember this: your restraint was never weakness, it was strategy. Your silence was never emptiness, it was full of truth, and your absence from their game was the loudest declaration you could ever make. Be still, and know that I am God. Psalm 40:10. I want to take a moment to say a sincere thank you to every single one of you who has been walking this journey with me. To those who have supported through super thanks. Your generosity humbles me and helps keep these messages flowing out to the people who need them most. And if you haven't donated, please know this. I'm just as grateful for you being here, listening, and taking these words to heart. Your presence alone is a gift. If this word resonated with you, tap that like button so I know you're standing in this strength. Drop a comment with Checkmate to declare that you've claimed this victory in your own life. May the Lord bless you with clarity to see through every false game, with courage to stand your ground without fear, and with peace so deep that no storm can move you. May your victories be silent, your heart be steadfast, and your life be a living testimony that God's chosen cannot be outplayed. You've already won. Chosen one. Now, walk like it.